Welcome back to the second session of the fifth chapter of class 11 biology. So today we shall start with the inflorescence. Inflorescence, as you know that plant have this angiosperm, that is the flowering plants have a flower which act as a reproductive organ in them, and these flowers are nothing but these are the modified shoots, and the appendages which are supposed to form the leaf are modified to form various whorls of a flower. And these flowers are arranged in the floral axis, and the arrangement of the arrangement of these flower on the floral axis is called as inflorescence. So the plant may terminate into flower, or it may grow. It may continue to grow. So depending upon that, there are two types of inflorescence, that is racemose and cymose. As you can see in the picture here, the first case, the flower are born laterally, and this apex, this continues to grow. Such a type of inflorescence we called it as racemose. So the flower presentation or the arrangement on this floral axis is acropetal. The young are at the tip and the older one at the base. Unlike this, we have another type, that is cymose, where the plant tip, the plant apex terminates into flower. So here the growth is limited. In the case of racemose, it was unlimited, and here it is limited. This terminates into flower, and the arrangement here you can see is that the older are at the tip and the younger one are at the base, that is basipetal. So these are the two basic or the broad types of arrangement of flower on the floral axis, that is inflorescence, racemose and cymose. So racemose, the flower grows laterally and the apex continues to grow, that is unlimited growth. In the case of cymose, they terminate into flower and the arrangement of the flower is basipetal and the growth is limited. Next is flower. So talking about the flower, as discussed, these are the modified shoots. And the main purpose or the function of the flower is for reproduction, and these have different whorls present on a swollen structure called as receptacles. So different whorls, and these receptacles will support the whorls of the flower, and the flower is attached to the stem by actually it's not stem, it is attached to the stem by peduncles. This receptacle is also called as thalamus. So looking at the four whorls of the flower, the outermost whorl, we have a sepal here, which is usually green in color, and they provide protection to the flower bud. And inner whorl is called as corolla, made up of petals. All the petals together we call it as corolla, and they are usually bright so as to attract the pollinators. And then inner to it, the whorl is androecium, which bears the male gamete, and the innermost whorl is the carpel, which bears the female gamete. So all the four whorls are present on the receptacle, which in turn is attached to the stem with the help of peduncle here. And these whorls, the two outer whorls, are called as accessory whorls, and these two inner whorls are essential whorls. So these two are directly related with the reproduction. Now this flower, it can be divided into two equal halves, or it cannot be divided into two equal halves. When you are not able to divide the flower into two equal halves, then we call it as asymmetric flower. And if the flower is divided into two equal halves from the center, then such a flower are symmetric flower. Again, here in the case of symmetry, we have two types, as we have seen in the case of animals. In the case of flower, if the flower is divided into two equal halves from only one plane, from one angle, then such a flower is called as zygomorphic. Such a symmetry here we find is zygomorphic. But if the flower is divisible into two equal halves from more than one plane, more than one angle like this, or here, such a flower is called as, such a symmetry here, we call it as actinomorphic. So actinomorphic is like a radial symmetry and zygomorphic is like a bilateral symmetry. Now, looking at the appendages, the number of appendages. Okay, so appendages means these are the petals or the sepals or let us say androecium. Okay, so these appendages number, okay, if it is a multiple of 3, we call it as trimerous. So here in this example, you find how many appendages? There are 6 appendages. It's a multiple of 3 here. And likewise here in the androecium also there are 6. It's multiple of 3. So this is trimerous flower, which is the distinguishing feature of a monocotyledon plant. Monocotyledon plant have a trimerous flower. Okay, tetramerous and pentamerous are found in dicotyledon plant. So here you can see, count the petals here, there are 4. Okay, tetramerous. And in this case, 5 petals, pentamerous. Okay. Now next, position of this floral part on the thalamus, that is receptacle. So based on the position of this, okay, whorls on the thalamus, okay, we have again 3 types of ovary, that is hypogynous, perigynous, and epigynous. Here in this picture, you can clearly see that the ovary part, okay, so we have to compare the position of this ovary with respect to all other, okay, whorls. So this ovary part is present on the thalamus and other whorls are situated below the position of the ovary. Okay, so in this case, the ovary becomes superior ovary, and such a ovary we call it as hypogynous. Now the next one is perigynous. Here ovary is here, but other, okay, it may look like there are, okay, the level is higher than that of ovary, but if you look carefully, the receptacle or the thalamus, okay, bear this whorl at its rim. At the rim region it is present. So again they are, okay, comparative, they are said to be having a same level. Okay, so such a type we call it as perigynous here and same here. So they are present at the rim of it. So they are perigynous ovary. Okay, so this is half inferior, half superior. Now the last part, as you can see that ovary here is completely enclosed by the thalamus and other part are present on the level higher than that of the ovary. Such an ovary is a inferior ovary and we also call it as hypogynous. Okay, so these are the 3 types of ovary depending upon the position of this floral part on the thalamus with respect to the position of ovary. Now talking about the flower, as discussed already, it has 4 whorls, calyx composed of a number of units called as sepals, corolla composed of number of units called as petals, androecium consists of number of stamen, and gynoecium it's made up of carpel or pistil, it can be 1 or many. Again here, in some group of plant, okay, the flower, the calyx and corolla are completely fused, and such a structure we call it as stipple. Okay, completely fused. Okay, each individual is called as stipple and the whole is called as perianth. Now let's talk about each one of them. Calyx. So it is based on the type of fusion. The calyx, the sepal, each sepal can be completely fused or it can be, okay, separate individual. If it is fused, here in the case of hibiscus, the green color, it forms a tubular structure here. It is completely fused. Such a type of sepal or calyx, we call it as gamosepalous. Gamo. Okay, it is fused. And here in the case of rose, you find that each one is individual. They are not fused. So polysepalous. Likewise, in corolla also, the petal can be fused like this. If it is fused, we call it as gamopetalous. And if it is free, like in the case of roses, we call it as polypetalous. Now next is estivation. So estivation is nothing but it is the mode of arrangement of sepals or petals during its bud stage. Okay, and it is with respect to each other member of the same whorl. Okay, so for example, if we are considering about sepal, we only consider about the sepal. So the arrangement of sepals, okay, during its bud stage. Or if it is about the petals or the arrangement of petal which with respect to each other, okay, so that arrangement during its bud stage is called as estivation. So let us see some types of estivation here. In this case, this appendage here I have shown, okay, in this picture there are okay, 5 appendages, and these appendages, it will not overlap here. It will not overlap here. They may just touch or may not touch. They are at the same level, and such a type of arrangement or the estivation is called as velvet, and it can be shown in the picture like this. Okay, so this is a diagrammatic picture. There is floral diagram here. Okay, estivation. So this appendage, this is one sepal, this represents one sepal, another sepal, okay, and so on, and they do not, okay, overlap each other. That is a velvet. Now, if the sepal overlap each other, for example, like this in a particular direction, so this is out, this part is inside the other appendages, okay, and so on. Okay, so you can see out, in, out, in, out, in. Okay, that you can see in a particular direction, okay, and such a estivation is called as twisted. Now, imbricate and quincuncial, again it is overlapping over one another, but there is no particular direction. For example, in this case, you find that even though there is a overlapping here, you find that one appendage, one sepal, let us consider sepal, one sepal is completely in, one sepal is completely out. Okay, so both the edges here, it will not, okay, enter, it is just outside. Even though it overlaps, they both are outside. So this is completely in, this is completely out, and 3 are in, out, in, out. Okay, this is out, this is in. And in the case of quincuncial here, again there is a overlapping, again there is no particular direction. In this case, there are 2 unit in, completely in, 2 completely out, and 1 is in and out. Okay, now the last type of estivation is very special. This is especially found in leguminous plant like that of papilionaceous flower like pea. So it has a very large petal called as standard, which overlaps the wings here, and this wing in turn will overlap the keel region, that is the anterior region here, completely. Okay, and such a type of estivation is called vexillary estivation. Okay, so these are the diagrammatic representation of this estivation, which is usually used. This structure is usually used to explain or describe a flower by using floral diagram. Okay, so as discussed here, perianth. So perianth, this whole is perianth, and each individual is tepal. Okay, here there is no separate petal and sepals. Sepals and petals are completely fused to form a single unit, and each single unit we call it as tepal, and this is usually found again in the case of monocotyledon plant, especially the onion and the lily. Okay. Now talking about the third world, that is, okay, andrecium. So andrecium are the structure which contains male gamete, and it composes of stamens. So this is one stamen here, and this stamen has a filament and anther, and this anther, if you take a cross section, you find a 4 round structure. Each one represents the microsporangium here, and inner to this microsporangium there are so many pollen grains, and this pollen grain contains male gamete. Okay, so this whole is a stamen here. Now in the flower there are certain sterile part. We call it as staminode. Staminode like this. So it do not bear any pollen grain. Now these stamens, that is anther and stigma, anther and the filament, it can be fused or it can be free. If it is fused, again it's of various type. For example, here these are all the anthers and filaments, and this is the extension of filament. All the filaments of this stamen, they are fused to form a tubular structure, and this completely fused stamen, okay, you can find all the stamens are fused into one bunch, one group, and such a type of andrecium is called as monoadelphous. Monoadelphous, as you can see in the case of hibiscus, that is China rose. Now again another type where there are 10 stamen, 9 are grouped together, 9 are completely fused, and we have a single one, and such a type of andrecium is called diadelphous, which is found in leguminous plant here. And then polyadelphous, they are grouped, the anthers, the filaments are fused, but they're fused in many groups. So we call it as polyadelphous, usually found in citrus. And here, this is an example where the filament or the androecium do not fuse at all. They are free, and that is called as polyandrous. Okay, and as we already discussed that the stamens are attached onto the receptacles or the thalamus, but sometimes the stamen, that is the filament part, can be attached to the petals. Okay, such an attachment we call it as epipetalous. Here the anther we have and the filament we have, and this filament is attached to the petals here. Okay, so that is epipetalous. And in the case of lily, that is in monocots, we know that the petals and the sepals are fused to form tepals. Okay, so in this case again, when the anthers, or you can say stamens, are attached to this perianth, or the tepals, we call it as epiphyllous. Okay, now next is female part, the innermost whorl, that is gynoecium. So the gynoecium consists of one or many carpel or pistil, and pistil is composed of stigma, style, and ovary. And stigma are the platform for landing the pollen grain, and the style provide a passage for the entry of the pollen tube, and the ovary is the bulge portion which contains number of ovule, one or many number of ovule. All together we call it as carpel. So if the carpel is one, we call it as monocarpellary. If the carpel is more than one, then we can call it as multicarpellary. So if it is multicarpellary, again, the carpel can be completely fused or it can be free. If it is completely fused like this, we call such a carpel as a syncarpus. And if it is completely free, there is a distinct carpel here, we call it as apocarpus. Okay, so the carpel can be apocarpus or syncarpus. Now, you know that in the carpel there is a bulge portion called as ovary, and in this ovary the ovules are present. So the attachment of the ovule onto the wall of the ovary, we call it as placentation. So there are different types of placentation. The first one is marginal placentation. So in this case, okay, so this is supposed to be the ovary and these are the ovules here. Okay, so the arrangement here, you can see such a type of arrangement where these ovules are attached to the ventral portion of the ovary. We call it as marginal placentation. Marginal placentation, as you can see in the case of P. Now, axial placentation. In this case, the ovules are attached at the axial in the multilocular ovary. Multilocular, there are more than one compartment here. Okay, such a type of placentation is called axial placentation. In the case of parietal placentation, the ovary are attached to the peripheral region of the ovary. And sometimes it may form a false septum. Okay, and such a type of placentation you find in cucumber. Now we have free placentation. The ovules are attached to the placenta in the central part of the ovary. Okay, and the locule here, the ovary, there is no compartment. Okay, unilocular condition. And the basal placentation, there is usually a single ovule in the ovary, okay, attached to the base of it. Okay, so this is a type of placentation, that is the arrangement or the attachment of the ovule onto the ovary wall. Okay, now next is fruit. So after fertilization, you get a fruit. Okay, and fruit will contain the seeds. Now, the ovary wall develops into fruit. Usually, it is the ovary wall which develops into fruit. Okay, and if it is the structure other than ovary, which also develops into fruit, then we call such a fruit as a false fruit. So example, in the case of apple, it is the thalamus which become fleshy, okay, which is edible, and we call it as a false fruit because the fruit is formed from a structure other than ovary. But if it is only from the ovary part, we call it as true fruit. Now the fruit wall is again can be fleshy or it can be dry, and these are divided into parts like epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp, and just inside in the central there are seeds. Here the picture is 2 cotyledon, that means these are the dicot seeds, dicot plant. Okay, now talking about the seed. After fertilization, the ovules develop into seed, and these seeds are present also in dicot as well as monocot. So this picture is of that of dicotyledon plant. The seed here is dicot seed. As we have already discussed, the seed containing 2 cotyledon. So the outermost part, that is seed coat, there is a seed coat here, and there is a hilum and micropyle region, and if you open this up, you find 2 cotyledons. And then there is a embryonal axis, and this embryo has a plumule which develops into shoot system, and there is a radicle which develops into root. Okay, so this is a seed of a dicotyledon plant. The picture given is that of a gram. Next is monocot seed. So monocot seed has a single cotyledon. So example given here is that of a maize. So here again you can find that it has a this one seed coat here, and the extra thing they have here is endosperm here. In the case of dicot, endosperm is absent because it has been consumed. It will be completely consumed by the growing embryo. That is why the endosperm will not be present in the mature seed. Okay, they become non-endospermic. But here, the endosperm is retained here. Endosperm is retained here, and it has a single cotyledon, and this cotyledon here, we call it as scutellum here, and then in this seed, there is a embryo here. And in this embryo, there is a plumule and radicle. Plumule is covered by a sheath of layered cell called as coloptile, and whereas radicle is covered by chlorhiza, which in turn is covered by root cap. Okay, so that's all about the parts of a plant. Okay, that is morphology of the flowering plants, in which we discuss about the root system and shoot system. And root system, again, the root and its modification and function. And in the case of shoot system, we discuss about the stem, we discuss about the leaf, flower, fruit, and again the modification of leaf and stem, okay, for various functions. So that's all about the part of a morphology of the flowering plants. Now next thing is, if you want to describe any flowering plants, we describe them with the use of some technical words. Okay, so let us look at some of the semi-technical description of the plant. Okay, so the plant, the flower, okay, the outermost whorl is called as sepal, or you can say calyx. Outer to that, there may be again a leafy structure called as bract. If the bract is present, we call it as bracteate, and it is represented by a formula Br. And the calyx, as you know, calyx composed of number of sepals. Calyx is represented by K, corolla by C. Perianth, we know that if there is calyx and corolla fused, completely fused, we call it as perianth. It is represented by P. Male, that is androecium, represented by A. Gynoecium, represented by G. And if the ovary is superior, we have discussed about the position of the ovary with respect to other whorls. If the ovary is superior, then we write G and then underline it. Okay, superior. And if it is inferior, the line comes above it here. And male is represented by this symbol, female represented by the symbol here. And if the flower is bisexual, that is both stamen and androecium, both androecium and gynoecium is present on one flower, the flower is bisexual. The flower is bisexual. You show a symbol like this. If there is only androecium, that is the flower becomes staminate or the male flower, then a plant also becomes male plant. We show like this, and if it is female, we show like this, and if it is bisexual, we'll show like this. Now again, depending upon the symmetry of the flower, The flower can be radial symmetry, that is, it can be divided into two equal halves from more than one plane, more than one angle, and then we call such a symmetry as actinomorphic symmetry, which is represented by this symbol here, plus, okay, inside the circle. And then if it is, the flower is divided into two equal halves only from one plane, then such a flower symmetry is called as zygomorphic, okay, which is represented by this formula here. Okay, and then again here, if there is any fusion or addition, we can also show, okay, by if there is a fusion, for example, if there are five petals here, we just write C and 5. And if it is gamopetalous, that is fused, then we put the 5 inside the bracket. Okay, if it is polypetalous, we just write 5. Likewise, we also know that androecium, okay, it is born on the thalamus. Sometimes androecium are attached to the perianth or attached to the corolla. Okay, so if it is like this, then again we have to show this one addition like this. We just have to show like this. Okay, so these semi-technical terms can be represented by various symbols and this formula. Okay, floral formula. So if you just look at the floral formula, you can easily say it is an actinomorphic, bisexual, having calyx, that is 2 plus 2. Okay, here it is 2 out, 2 in, 2 plus 2. And corolla 4, there are 4 corolla, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 petals, we can say 4 petals. Okay, it is shown 4 since they are all free velvet. Okay, you don't show any bracket inside. And then androecium is 2 plus 1. Androecium 2 is just outside longer, and then 4 are inner, so 2 plus 4. And gynoecium, there are 2, 1 and 2, so you have written 2, and this is superior ovary, and then this G is underlined here. And these two are fused, that is syncarpous. That is why it is put in brackets. So this is how these semi-technical terms are used for describing a particular flowering plant. So this particular, okay, this is called as floral formula, and this is a floral diagram. So while drawing a floral diagram, you just put a dot to represent its axis, and then we go from outermost wall towards the innermost. Okay, so outermost, that is calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. And while drawing, we also show the estivation here. So this appendage here, it is completely out. This is completely in here. This side is in. This edge is also in. Okay. So this is a representation of floral formula and diagram for Brassicaceae family. Okay, so that's all for the chapter. Thank you.